The examination hall was enormous. It was built to hold thousands of beings from across the galaxy. Today, it held exactly 200 candidates. They came from 15 different species. They all wanted the same thing: a position in the Galactic Intelligence Division was the highest honor any species could achieve for its members. Lavra Mitchell sat in row 3. She was 29 years old. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were the color of honey in sunlight. She wore the standard gray uniform that all human candidates were required to wear. It was plain. It was boring. It made her invisible among the colorful aliens that filled the room. This was exactly what she wanted. The Volthri were tall beings with blue skin and 4 arms. They ran this examination. They had run it for 300 years. Their empire was old and powerful. They believed they were the smartest species in the known universe. Most other species agreed with them. The Volthri had conquered more worlds through intelligence operations than through military force. Commander Zithrix stood at the front of the hall. He was 7 feet tall. His blue skin was darker than most Volthri. This meant he was old. Very old. He had administered this examination for 60 years. In all that time, only 12 candidates had ever passed. None of them had been human. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 40 years. They were considered young. They were considered primitive. Their technology was basic compared to species that had traveled between stars for thousands of years. Most aliens looked at humans the way humans might look at children trying to play adult games. Laura knew this. She counted on it. The commander raised one of his 4 hands. The room fell silent immediately. Even the crystal, insect-like beings who communicated through constant clicking sounds went quiet. This was a moment everyone had waited years for. "Welcome to the examination," Commander Zithrix said. His voice was deep and cold. "You are here because your species believes you are exceptional. You are here because someone thought you might be worthy of serving in the most elite intelligence organization in the galaxy." He paused and looked across the room. His eyes, which were completely black with no visible pupils, seemed to see everything at once. "Most of you are wrong to be here. Most of you will fail. This is not an insult. This is simply truth." Lavra watched him carefully. She noticed small things. The way his lower left hand twitched slightly. The way his eyes moved in a pattern, left to right, back to center, then up. He was scanning the room. But he was not scanning everyone equally. She noted which candidates he looked at longest. "The examination is simple," the commander continued. "In this room, there is a threat. An agent has infiltrated this gathering. Their mission is to eliminate a high-value target. You have 90 minutes to identify the agent. You must also identify their target." Murmurs spread through the hall. Candidates began looking at each other with suspicion. A large Marundi, a species of rock-like beings who could sense energy patterns, immediately closed its eyes and began to concentrate. If you identify the agent correctly, you pass. If you identify the target correctly, you receive bonus consideration. If you fail to identify either, or if you make an incorrect accusation, you are permanently disqualified from ever applying again. Lavra reached into her pocket. She pulled out a small chocolate bar. She unwrapped it slowly and took a bite. A Volthri candidate sitting 2 rows ahead turned to look at her. His expression showed clear disgust. "Are you not taking this seriously, human?" he asked. His voice was sharp with contempt. Lavra chewed her chocolate slowly. She swallowed before answering. "I take everything seriously," she said. "I just think better when I eat." The Volthri made a sound that was probably a laugh. "Your species has been in space for less than half a century. You have no advanced scanning technology. You have no telepathic abilities. You cannot sense energy patterns or detect chemical signatures. What exactly do you think you can contribute to this examination? Laura smiled at him. It was a small smile. Friendly. Harmless. I guess we will find out, she said. The Velthary turned away, dismissing her completely. 3 rows behind Laura, Nathan Cole watched this exchange. He was another human candidate. He was 32 years old, with short black hair and green eyes. He had spent 10 years in military intelligence on Earth before being selected for this examination. He knew Laura only by reputation. She had been a behavioral analyst for a government agency. Her specialty was reading people, understanding what they really meant when they spoke, seeing what they tried to hide. Nathan was not sure how useful that would be against aliens whose body language humans did not understand. 2 other humans were in the hall. Kevin Porter sat near the back. He was young, only 24, but he had already helped stop 3 terrorist attacks on Earth through pattern recognition. Katie Reeves sat near the front. She was 41 and had spent her career studying alien cultures and communications. 4 humans out of 200 candidates. The other 196 came from species with abilities humans could barely imagine. The examination timer appeared in the air above Commander Zethrix. 90 minutes. It began counting down. Immediately, the hall erupted into activity. The crystal began clicking rapidly, using their antennae to detect stress pheromones in the air. The Marundi spread out, trying to sense unusual energy signatures. The Velthary activated small devices on their wrists that scanned for thermal irregularities. Laura took another bite of her chocolate. She watched the commander. He had moved to the side of the room where a small platform held several chairs. Other Velthary officials sat there. They were watching the candidates. They were taking notes. But Commander Zethrix was not taking notes. He was not watching with the eager attention of someone waiting to see results. His posture was relaxed. His expression was bored. Laura found this very interesting. In her experience, a person who designed a test always watched closely to see if their creation worked. They were invested in the outcome. They wanted to see the moment of success or failure. Commander Zethrix looked like a man who already knew how this would end. 30 minutes passed. A crystal candidate approached the examination officials. It was the first accusation. I have identified the agent, the crystal announced. Its clicking speech was translated by a device worn around what might have been its neck. The Marundi in Section 7. Its stress pheromones are significantly elevated above baseline for its species. Commander Zethrix did not even look at the crystal directly. Incorrect, he said. You are disqualified. A red light appeared above the crystal candidate. It stood frozen for a moment, then slowly walked toward the exit. Its career in galactic intelligence was over. Laura watched the Marundi who had been accused. The rock-like being was trembling slightly. Its stress levels were probably even higher now. But Laura could see why. The Marundi was young. This was probably its first time away from its home world. It was nervous about the examination itself, not because it was hiding anything. The crystal had detected real stress. But it had misunderstood the source. More accusations followed. A Velthary accused another Velthary of thermal irregularities. Wrong. Disqualified. 2. Small beings called Synthery accused Kevin Porter of being the agent because humans were known for aggression. Wrong. Both disqualified. Kevin looked annoyed but stayed silent. By the 60-minute mark, more than half the candidates had been eliminated. The remaining ones were becoming desperate. Some had stopped trying to find the agent and were simply trying not to be accused themselves. Laura finished her chocolate bar. She folded the wrapper carefully and put it in her pocket. Nathan had moved closer to her during the chaos. He sat down in an empty seat nearby. You have not made any move, he said quietly. Do you have any idea what is happening? Laura looked at him. Her honey-colored eyes were calm. I have several ideas, she said. But I am still testing them. Testing them how? You are just sitting here eating chocolate. Exactly, Laura said. And what has that taught me? Nathan frowned. I do not understand. Laura tilted her head slightly toward the examination officials. Commander Zethrix has been watching this room for 60 minutes. He has seen his examination eliminate over 100 candidates. Most administrators would show some reaction. Satisfaction when someone fails. Interest when someone tries a new approach. Disappointment when a promising candidate makes a mistake. She paused. He has shown nothing. He is bored. He knew the outcome before the examination started. Nathan considered this. You think the examination is rigged? I think, Laura said slowly, that we are not taking the test we believe we are taking. She stood up. Every eye in the room turned toward her. The small human woman who had spent the entire examination eating chocolate was finally making a move. Laura walked toward the center of the room. She did not hurry. She did not show any sign of nervousness. Commander Zethrix, for the first time, looked genuinely interested. Laura stopped in the center of the examination hall. She could feel the weight of dozens of alien eyes watching her. Some were curious. Some were annoyed. Most were confused about why this insignificant human was drawing attention to herself. She did not speak yet. Instead, she turned slowly, looking at the remaining candidates. Then she looked at the examination officials on their raised platform. Finally, she looked at Commander Zethrix. I have a question, she said. Her voice was calm and clear. The commander's black eyes focused on her completely. Questions are permitted, he said, though they are rarely useful. The examination instructions said we must identify the agent and the target. But you never told us what kind of agent we are looking for. A ripple of confusion passed through the remaining candidates. The question seemed pointless. An agent was an agent. Someone trying to cause harm. Commander Zethrix tilted his head slightly. It was the first sign of real interest he had shown all day. The type of agent is irrelevant to the task, he said. Your job is identification, not classification. Laura nodded slowly as if considering his words. I understand. But here is my problem. Every species in this room has been using their natural abilities to scan for threats. The crystal detects stress chemicals. The Marundi sense energy patterns. The Velthari read thermal signatures. Everyone is looking for someone who does not belong. She paused. But what if the agent does belong? Silence fell across the hall. Even the candidates who had been whispering among themselves went quiet. Commander Zethrix leaned forward. Slightly. Explain your reasoning. Laura turned to address both the commander and the remaining candidates. An infiltration agent works by being undetected. Their entire purpose is to blend in. If they could be found by standard scanning technology, they would not be very good at their job. She pointed at the crystal candidates who remained. The crystal can detect stress pheromones, but a well-trained agent controls their stress response. That is basic training for any intelligence operative. The crystal have been detecting nervous candidates, not hidden agents. She turned to the Marundi. The Marundi sense energy patterns. But energy patterns can be masked with simple technology that has existed for centuries. Any agent worth their position would have such technology. She looked at the Velthari candidates. The Velthari read thermal signatures, but body temperature can be regulated artificially. Again, basic technology for anyone trying to hide. Laura spread her hands. Everyone in this room has been looking for physical evidence of an infiltrator. But physical evidence can be hidden, faked, or controlled. That approach will never work against a professional agent. A Valkyrie candidate stepped forward. He was tall, even for his species, with pale blue skin that marked him as young and probably wealthy. If physical detection does not work, he said, then how do you propose to find the agent? Humans have no special abilities. You cannot read minds. You cannot sense hidden energies. You are the most limited species in this room. Lara smiled at him. You are right, she said. Humans have no special abilities. We cannot do any of those things. She let the silence stretch. But humans did not evolve with those abilities. We had to survive without them. On our planet, we were prey before we were predators. We learned to survive by watching, by thinking, by understanding behavior instead of reading energy signatures. She walked slowly toward the examination platform where the officials sat. The question everyone has been asking is wrong. Everyone has been asking, who is hiding something? But that question assumes the agent is hiding in a way we can detect. She stopped and looked directly at Commander Zethrix. The right question is, what behavior does not match the situation? Nathan watched from his seat. He was beginning to understand what Lara was doing. She was not trying to find the agent. She was changing the entire nature of the examination. Katie Reeves, sitting near the front, was also watching carefully. She had studied alien cultures for years. She knew that the Valkyrie valued intelligence above all else. They would not respect the candidate who simply found the right answer. They would respect the candidate who demonstrated superior thinking. Lara was not just trying to pass the examination. She was trying to impress the examiners. Commander Zethrix, Lara continued, you have administered this examination for 60 years. In that time, only 12 candidates have passed. Is that correct? The commander nodded slowly. It is correct. And how many of those 12 were Valkyrie? A pause. 7. How many were from species allied closely with the Valkyrie Empire? Another pause, longer this time. 4. And the remaining one? A Morundi. From the third examination I ever administered. Lara nodded. So in 60 years, no species outside the Valkyrie sphere of influence has passed this examination. Not one. She turned to look at the remaining candidates. There were about 80 left. Roughly 30 were Valkyrie or from allied species. The rest were from neutral or distant civilizations. Does anyone else find that statistically unusual? Murmurs began spreading through the hall. The non-allied candidates looked at each other with growing suspicion. Not suspicion of each other, but suspicion of the examination itself. Commander Zethrix raised one of his 4 hands. You are making an accusation, he said. Be careful, human. If you are wrong, you will be disqualified like the others. Lara shook her head. I am not making an accusation. I am making an observation. The data speaks for itself. She turned back to face the room. This examination is not designed to find talented intelligence operatives from across the galaxy. It is designed to identify which non-Valkyrie species have candidates capable of thinking beyond their natural abilities. Kevin Porter stood up from his seat in the back. What does that mean? He asked. Lara looked at him. It means the examination has a different purpose than what we were told. The Valkyrie are not looking for recruits. They are looking for threats. The reaction in the hall was immediate. Candidates began talking over each other. Some demanded explanations. Some accused Lara of lying. A few quietly began moving toward the exits. Commander Zethrix stood up. His full height was intimidating. His forearms crossed over his chest in a gesture that looked defensive. You are making a serious claim, he said. Do you have evidence? Lara reached into her pocket. She pulled out the wrapper from her chocolate bar. It seemed like a strange action. Everyone watched, confused. When I entered this examination hall, she said, I was scanned 7 times by Valkyrie security devices. That is standard. Every candidate was scanned. She held up the wrapper. But the scans were not checking for weapons or dangerous materials. They were cataloging our technology, our communication devices, our biological patterns. Every candidate in this room has had their complete technical and biological profile recorded by Valkyrie Intelligence. She dropped the wrapper back into her pocket. The examination is 90 minutes long. In that time, you have watched how every species approaches a problem. You have seen what technology they use. You have observed their psychological responses to stress and failure. You have gathered more intelligence about the capabilities of 15 different species than your spy. Any TWOR case could gather in years. Nathan stood up now too. The examination is the intelligence operation, he said, understanding flooding his voice. We are not looking for an agent. We are the intelligence being gathered. Lavra pointed at him. Exactly. The Valkyrie do not need to send spies to study other species. They just invite those species to send their best and brightest to an examination that will never let them pass. Commander Zethrix did not deny any of it. He stood perfectly still, watching Lara with those completely black eyes. You are smarter than most humans, he said finally. Perhaps smarter than most beings who have sat in this room. I am not finished, Lara said. The commander's eyes widened slightly. It was a small reaction. But on a Valkyrie, it meant surprise. There is more? Lara nodded. The examination instructions mentioned a high-value target. You said the agent's mission was to eliminate this target. But in 60 minutes, no high-value target has entered this room. At least, not one that matches what we would expect. She turned and pointed at the side entrance of the hall. Except that door has opened twice in the last hour. Once for a maintenance worker. Once for a Valkyrie official who sat down next to you and has been observing ever since. Everyone looked at the Valkyrie official. He was older than the commander, with skin so dark blue it was almost purple. He wore simple clothes. He had no visible rank insignia. He looked like nobody important. That, Lavra said, is General Kethros, Supreme Commander of Valkyrie Military Intelligence. I recognize him from news broadcasts about the Treaty of Nexus 3 years ago. The old Valkyrie, General Kethros, smiled. It was not a friendly expression. The human recognizes me, he said. His voice was rough and ancient. Most of my own officers do not recognize me when I dress plainly. Lavra did not smile back. The high-value target is you, General. You entered this room to observe the final stages of the examination, which means the examination is almost over. She looked at the remaining candidates, and I believe I know who the agent is. The examination hall had become completely silent. Every being in the room was focused on Laura Mitchell. The small human woman who had spent most of the examination eating chocolate was now claiming she knew the identity of the hidden agent. General Kethros leaned forward in his seat. His ancient eyes studied Laura with an intensity that would have made most beings uncomfortable. You claim to know the agent, he said. That is a bold statement. Many candidates have made similar claims today. All of them were wrong, Lavra nodded. They were wrong because they were looking for the wrong thing. They assumed the agent was someone trying to hide, someone whose behavior would reveal stress or deception. She began walking slowly through the hall, moving between the rows of remaining candidates. But I asked myself a different question. If I were running this examination and I wanted to test candidates in the most effective way possible, how would I design it? She stopped next to a crystal candidate. The insect-like being clicked nervously. The examination tells us there is an agent. It tells us there is a target. It gives us 90 minutes to find both. Most candidates immediately begin searching using their natural abilities. She moved on, walking past a group of Marundi. But what if the point of the examination was not to find the agent at all? What if the point was to see how candidates think when they are told there is a threat? Nathan had been following her logic. Now he spoke up. "You are saying there might not be an agent." Laura smiled at him. "I considered that possibility. It would be clever. Tell everyone there is a hidden threat. Watch how they react. The examination becomes a psychological test rather than a detection test." She turned to face Commander Zithrix. But that would be too simple. The Velthari are known for complex thinking. They would not design an examination with such an obvious twist. The commander said nothing. His expression remained unreadable. "So there must be an agent," Lavra continued. "But the agent is not hiding in the traditional sense. The agent is hiding in plain sight." She walked toward the examination platform where the officials sat. "Commander Zithrix, how many officials are observing this examination?" The commander glanced at his colleagues. 12. "And how many were originally scheduled to observe?" A pause. 11. Lavra pointed at a Velthari official sitting at the far end of the platform. He was younger than the others, with light blue skin and a nervous energy that contrasted with the calm demeanor of his colleagues. That official arrived 40 minutes into the examination. He came through the main entrance, not the official entrance. He has been watching the candidates, but he has also been watching General Kethros. The young Velthari official stiffened visibly. "The agent is not among the candidates," Lavra said. "The agent is among the officials." The reaction was immediate. Security personnel who had been standing quietly at the edges of the room suddenly moved. They surrounded the platform where the officials sat. General Kethros stood up slowly. Despite his age, there was nothing fragile about his movement. "This is an interesting accusation," he said. "But accusations require evidence. Why you believe this official is an agent?" Lavra held up her hand and began counting on her fingers. First, his arrival time. 40 minutes into the examination is exactly when most candidates have made their first accusations. It is when the room is most chaotic and distracted. Perfect time for someone to slip in unnoticed. She raised a second finger. Second, his entrance route. Officials enter through secured passages that are scanned and monitored. He entered through the main entrance that candidates use. Why would an official avoid the official entrance unless they did not want their identity confirmed? A third finger. Third, his behavior. Every other official has been taking notes or watching candidates. He has been watching the general. His eyes track the general's movements. His body turns when the general moves. That is target fixation. It is something intelligence operatives are trained to avoid, but in high-stress situations, instinct takes over. She lowered her hand. Fourth, and most importantly, he is afraid. Not nervous like the candidates, afraid. His fear increased the moment I began talking about the examination being an intelligence-gathering operation. An innocent official would not be afraid of that revelation. But an agent whose cover depends on the examination continuing normally would be very afraid. The young Velthari official suddenly moved. His hand went to his side, reaching for something hidden under his clothing. He never completed the motion. Velthari security officers grabbed him from both sides. They forced him to the ground with practiced efficiency. General Kethros walked slowly toward the restrained official. His ancient face showed no emotion. "Search him," he ordered. Security officers pulled a small device from the official's hidden pocket. It was compact, no larger than a human finger. A neural disruptor, one of the security officers reported. Modified for close range. Lethal within 3 meters. General Kethros looked at the device. Then he looked at Lavra. "You identified the agent. You identified the target. You explained the method and provided evidence." Lavra said nothing. She simply waited. The examination protocol requires me to confirm your success, the general continued. You have passed. The remaining candidates erupted in noise. Some were congratulating Laura. Others were demanding to know why they had not seen what she had seen. A few were arguing that the examination was unfair because it had been designed to mislead them. Commander Zethrix raised his hands for silence. The examination is over, he announced. All remaining candidates are dismissed. Your results will be sent to your respective governments within 1 standard week. As candidates began filing out, Nathan made his way toward Laura. Katie and Kevin joined him. The 4 humans stood together as aliens walked past them, many giving them curious or hostile looks. How did you know? Nathan asked quietly. Laura watched the security officers drag the captured agent toward an exit. I did not know, she admitted. I suspected. There is a difference. But you were certain when you accused him. Laura shook her head. I was not certain. I was confident. Certainty is dangerous. It makes you stop looking for other possibilities. Kevin crossed his arms. That seems like a risky approach. What if you had been wrong? Then I would have been disqualified, Laura said simply. But I would have learned something. The Velthari reaction to an incorrect accusation would have told me something about how they think. Information is never wasted, even when you fail. Katie had been watching the examination platform. The officials were gathered around General Kethrus, speaking in low voices. They are talking about you, Katie said. The general keeps looking this way. Laura did not turn to look. Let them talk. I have learned what I needed to learn. Nathan frowned. What do you mean? The examination is over. You passed. The examination I was given is over, Laura agreed. But the examination I was actually taking was something else. Before Nathan could ask what she meant, General Kethrus approached their group. Security officers flanked him, but he waved them back. Human, he said to Laura, walk with me. It was not a request. Laura nodded and fell into step beside the ancient Velthari. They walked toward a private exit at the back of the hall. You are unusual, General Kethrus said as they walked. Most humans we encounter are loud, aggressive. They try to compensate for their technological limitations with enthusiasm and boldness. Most humans have not been in situations where those traits are disadvantages. Laura replied. The general made a sound that might have been a laugh. You understand something that most beings never learn. Power is not about what you can do. It is about what you can see. They reached the exit. The general stopped and turned to face Laura. The examination you passed was designed 50 years ago. It was designed to be impossible for species without advanced detection abilities. We believed it would identify the truly exceptional minds from across the galaxy. He paused. In 50 years, no one has solved it the way you did. No one looked at the examiners instead of the candidates. No one questioned the structure of the test itself. Laura met his ancient eyes. With respect, General, that says more about your examination design than about my abilities. You created a test that rewarded a specific type of thinking. The species that succeeded were the ones that thought like Velthari. You were not finding exceptional minds. You were finding familiar ones. The general was silent for a long moment. You are dangerous, he said finally. The Velthari have always believed that species without natural abilities are inferior. You have just demonstrated that belief is wrong. Laura did not respond to the implicit threat. I am not dangerous, she said. I am human. We are prey animals who learn to think our way to the top of our food chain. We do not have special abilities because we never needed them. We had something better. And what is that? Laura smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Patience. We can wait. We can watch. We can learn. And when we finally act, We act from understanding, not from instinct. She looked back toward the examination hall where her fellow humans were waiting. The Velthari have run this galaxy for thousands of years because you could see things other species could not. But you cannot see us. We are too quiet, too patient, too willing to sit in the background and observe. She turned back to the general. 3 days after the examination, Laura sat in a small meeting room aboard the human diplomatic vessel Horizon. Nathan, Katie, and Kevin sat with her. They had been waiting for this meeting since leaving the examination station. The door opened. Admiral Patricia Gray walked in. She was 62 years old, with silver hair, cut short, and eyes that had seen 30 years of military service. Behind her came Director Samuel West of Earth Intelligence Services. He was younger, maybe 50, with a careful way of moving that suggested he trusted nothing and no one. "Tell me everything," Admiral Gray said, as she sat down. Laura began with her arrival at the examination station. She described the setup, the instructions, and the reactions of the different species. She explained her observations about Commander Zethrix and his lack of interest in the examination results. The examination was never about recruitment, she concluded. It was about gathering intelligence on non-Velthari species. They have been running this operation for decades. Every species that sent candidates gave the Velthari detailed information about their best intelligence operatives. Director West leaned forward. "How much did they learn about us?" "They learned that humans have no advanced scanning technology. They learned that we rely on observation and analysis rather than technological aids. They cataloged the communication devices and biological patterns of every human candidate." "That sounds like a significant intelligence loss," Admiral Gray said. Laura shook her head. "It would be, if we did not know they were gathering it. Now we can use that knowledge. We can feed them false information in future examinations. We can send candidates with modified technology. We can create the impression we want them to have." Nathan spoke up. "She turned their intelligence operation into our intelligence operation. They think they learned about us, but we learned more about them." Director West looked at Nathan with interest. "Explain." "The Velthari examination reveals how they think. They believe in technological superiority. They design tests that favor species with natural abilities. They are confident that their methods are undetectable." Katie added to this. "Their confidence is their weakness. They have been running this examination for 50 years without anyone questioning its true purpose. They stopped expecting anyone to see through it." Admiral Gray turned back to Laura. "General Kethro spoke with you privately. What did he want?" Laura had been waiting for this question. "He wanted to understand how I solved the examination. He is concerned about humans now. He called us dangerous. Are we dangerous?" Laura considered her answer carefully. "We could be. The Velthari have built their intelligence operations around the assumption that they can see things other species cannot. They have thermal vision. They have energy sensing. They have thousands of years of experience." She paused. "But they have never encountered a species that evolved without those abilities. They do not understand how we think. They do not know how to predict our behavior. That uncertainty frightens them." Director West stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars drifted slowly past. "The Galactic Council believes humans are minor species. We have no vote. We have no representation. We are tolerated because we cause no trouble." He turned to face the room. "Should we continue to cause no trouble?" Admiral Gray spoke before anyone else could respond. "That is not our decision to make. The Council of Earth will decide human policy toward the galactic community." "I am not asking about policy," Director West said. "I am asking about capability. If Earth decided to become more active in galactic affairs, could we compete with species like the Velthari? Lavra answered, "Not directly. We cannot match their technology. We cannot match their numbers. We cannot match their experience. Then what can we do? We can do what we have always done. We can adapt. We can learn. We can find advantages that other species do not expect." She stood up and walked to a display screen on the wall. She activated it, showing a map of the galaxy. The Velthari control 17% of known space. They have allies who control another 23%. Together, they dominate galactic politics. She highlighted a small region near the edge of human territory. Human space represents less than 1%. We are not a threat by any conventional measure. Director West made an impatient gesture. "We know this. What is your point?" Lavra zoomed the map to show trade routes. The Velthari maintain their power through information control. They know what every other species is doing. They know about threats before those threats develop. Their intelligence network is the most extensive in the galaxy. She turned to face the others. But their network relies on species behaving in predictable ways. Species with scanning abilities behave one way. Species with telepathy behave another way. The Velthari have studied these patterns for thousands of years. And humans? Lavra smiled. Humans are too new, too small, too insignificant. The Velthari have not had time to study us. They do not know our patterns. They cannot predict our behavior. Kevin spoke up for the first time. We are invisible to them. Not invisible, Lavra corrected. Unreadable. They can see us. They just do not understand what they are seeing. Admiral Gray stood up. This is all theoretical. What practical advantage does this give us? It gives us the advantage of surprise. The Velthari do not expect us to be capable of sophisticated intelligence operations. They do not guard against us because they do not believe we are a threat. Director West returned to his seat. You are suggesting we develop our own intelligence network. I am suggesting we have already started. The four of us survived an examination designed to eliminate us. We did it without technology. We did it by thinking differently than the Velthari expected. Lavra pointed at each of her companions in turn. Nathan has military intelligence training. Katie has years of experience studying alien cultures. Kevin can identify patterns that others miss. I can read behavior across species boundaries. She spread her hands. The Velthari just gave us a complete demonstration of their intelligence-gathering methods. They showed us how they think. They revealed their blind spots. And they let us walk away with all of that information. Admiral Gray looked at Director West. Something passed between them. A decision made without words. What would you need? The Admiral asked. Lavra had prepared for this question. Time, resources, access to diplomatic missions where we can observe other species. And most importantly, we need to appear harmless. The moment other species start taking humans seriously, we lose our advantage. Director West nodded slowly. You want to use their prejudice against them. I want to use their assumptions against them. Every species in the galaxy looks at humans and sees primitive creatures who got lucky. Let them keep believing that. Let them ignore us while we learn everything we can about them. Katie raised her hand slightly. There's a risk. If the Velthari realize what we are doing, they will act against us. They have destroyed civilizations for less. Lavra acknowledged this with a nod. The risk is real. But the alternative is waiting for other species to decide our future. Right now, humans survive because we are not worth the trouble of eliminating. That will not last forever. As we grow, as we expand, we will become a factor in galactic politics, whether we want to or not. She looked at Admiral Gray directly. We can wait for that moment unprepared. Or we can spend the time learning everything we can about the species we will eventually have to deal with. Admiral Gray was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. The examination was designed to identify threats. You said everyone failed. Lavra nodded. Everyone failed the examination they thought they were taking. But I was not taking that examination. What examination were you taking? Lavra smiled. I was taking an examination I designed for myself. The question I was answering was not who is the hidden agent. The question was, what can I learn about the Veltari by watching how they run this examination? Director West made a sound that might have been a laugh. You turned their test into your test. I turned their advantage into my advantage. That is what humans do. We cannot compete on equal terms, so we changed the terms. Admiral Gray made her decision. Very well. You four will form the core of a new unit. Your mission will be to observe, analyze, and report on galactic species. You will have resources. You will have protection. But you will not have recognition. As far as the galaxy is concerned, you are nobody. Lavra nodded. That is exactly what we need to be. The meeting continued for another hour. They discussed logistics, cover stories, and initial targets for observation. When it finally ended, the four humans walked together toward the observation deck. Nathan looked at Lavra as they walked. You planned this, he said. From the beginning. You were not just trying to pass the examination. You were trying to get this meeting. Lavra did not deny it. I saw an opportunity. The examination brought together the best human candidates. It gave us a chance to demonstrate our value, and it provided information that Earth needed to understand. Katie shook her head in wonder. You sat there eating chocolate, and you were planning a complete restructuring of human intelligence operations. Lavra smiled. I was eating chocolate because I think better when I eat. The planning came naturally. They reached the observation deck. The stars spread out before them, infinite and ancient. 5 years had passed since the examination on Nexus Station. The galaxy had continued turning, as it always had. The Veltari maintained their dominance. The great powers played their ancient games of influence and control. And humanity remained a minor species on the edge of known space-time, at least. That is what the galaxy believed. General Kethra sat in his private office on the Veltari homeworld. The room was simple. Plain walls. A single desk. One window looking out over the capital city. He had never liked luxury. It distracted from thinking. A knock at his door. Enter. Commander Zethrix walked in. He looked older than he had 5 years ago. Troubled. You asked to see me, General. Sit. Zethrix sat in the chair across from the desk. He waited. He knew better than to speak before the general was ready. Tell me about the human intelligence presence in Veltari space, Kethra said finally. Zethrix shifted uncomfortably. There is nothing to tell. General, our surveillance networks show no human intelligence operations in our territory. That is the problem. Zethrix frowned. I do not understand. Kethros turned to look out his window. The city below was ancient. Millions of Veltari lived their lives, confident in their empire's power. 5 years ago, a human woman sat in your examination and dismantled its entire purpose in 90 minutes. She identified our intelligence-gathering operation. She identified my presence. She caught an actual infiltrator that our own security had missed. He turned back to face Zethrix. And then she walked away. She returned to human space. And we have heard nothing from her since. Zethrix spread his 4 hands in a gesture of confusion. Perhaps she was an exception. One remarkable individual does not represent an entire species. That is what I told myself for the first year. Pasados year. Then I began receiving reports. Kethros opened the drawer in his desk and pulled out a data tablet. He slid it across to Zithrix. Read. Zithrix picked up the tablet. His expression changed as he read. Confusion became concern. Concern became something close to fear. This cannot be correct. It is correct. I verified every report personally. The tablet contained 5 years of intelligence analyses. Small incidents. Minor anomalies. Things that individually meant nothing but together formed a pattern. Crickstill ambassador who changed his position on a trade agreement after a conversation with a human cultural attaché. A Marundi mining company that withdrew from a disputed sector after human merchants began operating in the area. A Synthary political faction that collapsed following visits by human, academic researchers. None of these events could be directly connected to human action, but they all benefited human interests in subtle ways. We cannot prove any of this, Zithrix said. No, we cannot. And that is what concerns me. Kethros stood and walked to his window again. The Velthari have maintained power for 3,000 years because we understand how intelligence operations work. We know the signs. We know the patterns. When another species tries to manipulate galactic politics, we see it. He placed one hand against the cold glass. We do not see the humans. We cannot detect their operations. We cannot identify their agents. We cannot prove they are doing anything at all. Zithrix stood as well. Perhaps they are not doing anything. Perhaps these incidents are coincidental. Do you believe that? A long silence. No, Zithrix admitted finally. I do not. Neither do I. Kethros turned to face his subordinate. I have spent 5 years trying to understand how they operate. I have assigned our best analysts to study human behavior. I have deployed surveillance assets throughout human space. Do you know what we found? Zithrix waited. Nothing. We found nothing unusual. The humans go about their lives. They trade. They explore. They build their small colonies. They appear to be exactly what they claim to be. A young species learning to navigate the galaxy. He walked back to his desk. But every few months, something happens. Something small. Something that shifts the balance of power just slightly away from our interests. And when we investigate, we find humans nearby. Not doing anything suspicious. Just present. Like the woman at the examination, Zithrix said slowly. She sat in the 3rd row, eating chocolate, appearing harmless. Yes, exactly like her. Kethros sat down heavily. I made a mistake 5 years ago. I recognized her as a threat. I told her she was dangerous. And then I let her walk away. You could not have held her. The diplomatic implications alone would have been severe. I know. That is not the mistake I mean. Zithrix waited. My mistake was letting her know that I recognized her. I showed her that the Velthari could be surprised. I revealed that our confidence in our intelligence superiority was not absolute. He looked down at the data tablet still in Zithrix's hands. She took that information back to her people. And they used it. They learned from it. They understood that the great Velthari Empire was not as all-seeing as we pretended to be. Far across the galaxy, Lavra Mitchell sat in a small office on Earth. The room was plain. Simple furniture. One window overlooking a garden. She had never liked luxury either. A screen on her desk showed a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of small markers indicated human presence. Diplomatic missions. Trade delegations. Academic exchanges. Cultural programs. None of them were officially intelligence operations. All of them reported to her. The door opened. Nathan Cole walked in. He was 40 now, with touches of gray in his black hair. 5 years had changed him. Made him sharper. More confident. The Crystal Trade Agreement passed the council vote, he reported. Our margin was wider than expected. Lavra nodded. The ambassador's concerns about Velthary tariffs were genuine. We simply helped him see that human alternatives existed. Did he know he was being influenced? Lavra smiled slightly. He was not being influenced. He was given information and made his own choice. There's a difference. She turned off the galactic map. The Velthary will notice this vote. They will add it to their growing list of suspicious coincidences. Nathan sat down in the chair across from her desk. Does that concern you? It is inevitable. We have been operating for 5 years. Eventually, patterns emerge. The question is whether they can prove anything. And can they? Lavra shook her head. Our operations do not look like operations. We do not recruit informants. We do not steal secrets. We do not manipulate through deception. We simply provide information that people want. We help them see possibilities they had not considered. She leaned back in her chair. The Velthary have spent 3,000 years perfecting intelligence techniques based on secrets and manipulation. They do not know how to counter an approach based on openness and assistance. Nathan considered this. General Kethros is not stupid. He will adapt. He will try. But adaptation is difficult for a species that has succeeded the same way for millennia. They believe in their methods because those methods have worked. Changing requires admitting those methods might be wrong. She stood and walked to her window. The garden outside was peaceful. Birds moved among the flowers. The examination taught me something important about the Velthary. Their confidence comes from their abilities. They can see things other species cannot see, but they have never learned to see what they cannot see. Meaning? Lavra turned to face him. Meaning they look for evidence. Physical evidence. Detectable evidence. When they find evidence, they trust it. When they do not find evidence, they assume nothing is happening. She spread her hands. We leave no evidence. We do not intercept communications. We do not plant agents. We do not use technology that can be detected. We simply talk to people. We share information. We help them make decisions. Nathan nodded slowly. We are invisible because we are not doing anything they would recognize as intelligence work. Exactly. The Velthary designed their examination to identify species that thought like them. Species that used abilities and technology. They never imagined a species that would sit quietly and think. She returned to her desk. In 5 years, we have shifted the balance of power across 17 sectors. We have influenced the outcomes of 4 major trade agreements. We have positioned human interests in ways that will benefit us for decades. Lavra looked at the blank screen where the galactic map had been. And the Velthary know something is happening. They can feel it, but they cannot see it. They cannot stop it. They cannot even prove it exists. She smiled. The examination was designed to identify threats. The Velthary thought they were testing us. They thought they were gathering intelligence on human capabilities. Nathan understood. They were. They just did not realize what capabilities they were revealing. Lavra nodded. They showed us how they think. They showed us their blind spots. They showed us exactly what they would not be looking for. She picked up a report from her desk. Another small success. Another minor shift in galactic politics. Another step toward a future where humanity would not be ignored. The examination question was identify the threat. Everyone failed because they looked for obvious dangers. Hidden enemies. Detectable risks. She set down the report. But the real threat was never hidden. The real threat was sitting in the 3rd row, watching. Learning. Planning. Nathan stood up. Sometimes I wonder if you planned all of this from the beginning. From the moment you sat down in that examination hall. Lavra considered the question. I planned to learn as much as I could. I planned to survive. I planned to use whatever I discovered to help my species. She met his eyes.